Hello, all footy fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Wild Doggies Fan podcast. This is episode 5, and if you're new here, please like the video, comment down below, subscribe, and stay tuned for all future videos. Okay, guys, today we're covering round 23 and round 24. And my goodness, what a round 23 was. A lot of great games, a lot of great moments, and a lot of news following the round as well, leading into round 24. So, without further ado, let's get this show on the road with our round 23 review. Okay, so the first game was on the Thursday night at Accor Stadium, the Rabbitohs and the Storm. Storm win 28-16. Now, I went to this game because it's, local Accor Stadium. Why not? Get as much live footy as I can. And a bit of a boring game. I thought Melbourne would put like 50 on them. I thought Melbourne were going to absolutely dominate. But, South put up a bit of a fight. They showed some resilience. They showed some great skills at some points. Like that intercept try was unreal from them. But, Melbourne, too classy. Even when they're playing poorly, they're still winning games. So, not much else to cover about that game. Except for where I was seeing, I could look directly at the Borough. And I just couldn't stop laughing about how there was literally no one there. And I put it on my story, at the Wild Doggies Fan on Instagram. You should follow me on there. And I was just laughing at how empty the Borough was. There was no one there, barely anyone there. And I saw some photos and stuff. There were actually some Doggies and Roosters fans and Panthers fans. There were other fan bases in the Borough because the Borough was just so empty. And I just laugh at that because you look at the Kennel now and how packed it is and how... If I want to go to the Kennel for the Manly and Cowboys games coming up soon, mate, if I get tickets for those games, I'm going to have to get there 2 hours early just to guarantee I get spots in the Kennel. So that was just a little funny thing I noticed during the game. Otherwise than that, there was not much else of interest in this game. Neither team played that well, so we'll just move on. We'll move on to the Friday games. First game that was on the Friday night, 6 o'clock, the Titans and the Sharks at Seabus Super Stadium. The Sharks, with a surprising upset, putting 44 points and held the Titans scoreless. I was shocked. And, the last couple of weeks, every time we've needed the Sharks to lose to try and help us get into the top 4, they always play well. On 2 different occasions, Sharks put on these huge wins. We needed Tigers to beat them by 12 or more a few weeks ago. Sharks ended up putting 56 points on them. We needed Souths to beat them. Sharks beat them. Not a lot, but they beat them. And we need the Titans, a team that was... Last week I was literally saying that the Titans could be making a run for the top 8. They then put this absolutely poor performance, and the Sharks put 44 unanswered points on them. 30 of them in the first half. It was insane. You wouldn't think that last week these teams played the way they did compared to this week. It was so mind-boggling. But, there's not much else I can say about this game as well. Titans, they weren't up for it. Everything they did last week, they kind of threw out the window. They weren't shifting out the ball as much. They weren't, as creative. But to be fair, they had some pretty good chances to try and score some points. And it was the Sharks' defense that just held them. It just held them scoreless. They were just on point. I think Sharks kind of figured out a formula that's working out for them. Just do these big runs to the middle, just barnstorm them down, and it's working. It's working for them. Some of the games they're doing that, and they're scoring big points. And you think with McInnes at hooker and Blake Brayley in the halves, you wouldn't think the Titans would lose this game, but they did. So credit to the Sharks. Hopefully they start losing so we can make top 4. That would be good for the Bulldogs' sake. Anyway, we'll move on to what will probably be the game of the round. Eels and Panthers at CommBank Stadium, 34-36. You read that scoreline, you wouldn't think it was 2nd versus 16th. You'd think it's 2 top 4 teams going for a clash here. And then when you look at when there was 10 minutes to go and what the scoreline was, you're probably thinking, how the hell did Panthers pull this off? But once again, like they've been doing the last couple of weeks, and the last few years actually, when the pressure's building up, they don't crack, and Nathan Cleary puts the Panthers on his back, and they just produce some of the greatest comebacks I've seen in the last few years. They had the grand final, the game against the Dolphins, Newcastle, now this game against Parramatta. it's unreal what Panthers are doing. As long as Cleary is fit and healthy in their side, I cannot see them losing, because they're playing so well. And even when they're not playing that well, they're still finding ways to make it work and get them over the line to win. Like, Parramatta, for all money, should have won this game. I thought this was a game Panthers are going to put like 30 points on them. But again, Parramatta, they always had this hoodoo over Panthers, and they just, absolutely gave it to them for most of this game, until Panthers decided to click it and just score like 3 tries in like 5 minutes. And, obviously, everyone's laughing at Gutherson. He absolutely shanked that kick. And then, there was that, you could say it was an obstruction call. I don't think it was an obstruction, but that's just my opinion. But Parramatta, for all money, should have won this game, considering how they were playing. But it just shows you where the two teams are at this season. And, yeah, there's not much else to cover. This was just a phenomenal game. It was just a really high-stakes game. I was just so impressed with Panthers' comeback. Now we move on to Super Saturday. Manly and the Raiders. Manly, this was down in Canberra, first of all, at Geo Stadium. Manly win 46-24. Half-time score was, I believe, 18-12 or 12 all. I'm not 100% too sure. Regardless, this game was very close. Raiders started this game out really well, but there's something in that second half just clicked for Manly. Tommy Turbo, Cherry Evans, Garrick, Saab, they all just clicked, and they were playing some great footy. Again, it's a day game in Canberra on that dry track. That's what the Manly team, they feed on that kind of flat track, dry. They can just run the ball, because they're one of the best attacking teams at the moment. They're one of the best teams to scoring these long-range tries, shifting the ball out. They got speed for days. So it was a great game from Manly. And then Raiders, there's not much else I can say about them. They had a lot to play for. It's Papa's 300th in Canberra. I know he had his 300th against the Dogs at Belmore last week, but for them, it's their first home game since then. It's their chance to celebrate his 300th, and they couldn't get it done. And I know that the Raiders would be absolutely gutted about that. And again, it just throws another spanner in their race for the 8. Mathematically, there's still a chance, but they've just made it a lot harder for them going into the next couple of weeks. Now we move on to what in my opinion, was the upset of the round. Broncos beating the Cowboys 42-18. Like, you wouldn't think that over the last 2 weeks that Broncos had 40 points put on them twice, and Cowboys had won their last 2 games. You wouldn't think that looking at this scoreline. Halftime, it's 18-12. This game was ready for the Cowboys to win it. I think they had a try disallowed early in the second half. And then Tony Staggs, he was outstanding in this game. 2 tries, shit ton of meters. It was just a great performance from the Broncos overall. I think it kind of exposes the fact that Cowboys, they at times will just clock off, and they get sloppy, they get lazy, ill-disciplined, and it costs them. I think this loss puts a huge spanner in their race for top 4. So yeah, again, both these 2 Saturday games, I watched them, but I wasn't fully focused on them because I was getting ready to go down to Cogra for the next game, which I'm glad to cover. What was hyped up to be the game of the week, game of the year, the Dragons and the Bulldogs at the Australia Jubilee Stadium in Cogra. Dragons lost 10-28. The Doggies prevailed once again that's back-to-back-to-back wins. Now, obviously, I'm going to do a deep dive later, as I always do for Bulldogs games, but going to the game, I think it was my second away game this year to go to. It was fantastic, and I was surrounded by a whole bunch of Doggies fans. We partied pretty much, even before kickoff, we were just talking. The atmosphere was great. Before I get into before and after the game, I want to talk about the actual game itself. Now, this was a great game. I think both teams were up for it. You can clearly tell the history was still quite fresh in their minds. There's quite a bit of history between the Bulldogs and the Dragons. And it was a great game. Early first half, we had that mad intercept from Matt Burden, running like 90 meters-ish. And that was fantastic. I was going ballistic. And then we had, Lomax's try. It was a solid try. We could have probably deflected it, but, it's what makes the Dragons a team that on their on day will work really well is when they score those kind of tries. Then we had, Toby Sexton and Bronson Sherry stepping it up big time. And, they had great try assists and tries. And it was a great first half from the Bulldogs. 20-10 halftime score. Tyrell Sloan scored a pretty cheap try towards the back end of the first half, but it's going to happen at times. He's very fast. He's very quick. But and then the second half was very kind of defense heavy. Both teams were very defense based. Again, one try was scored the entire second half, and that was from Kurt Mann, who scored a pretty good try right in front of us, like where I was, and all my mates and all the other people around us. He scored right in front of us, so we were all going nuts when we saw him put the ball down over the line. So that was really good. And obviously, I'll cover it more a bit later, but it was a great game. Probably second best game of the week, I'd say. Moving on. Actually, no, sorry. I'll make that the third best game, because the next game was the second best game of the week. The Dolphins and the Warriors at Suncorp Stadium. The Dolphins get the win 34-32 in Golden Point thriller. This was a fantastic game. Early first half, Dolphins are quite dominant. They're putting the Warriors under the pump. And fun fact, both these teams are the next two teams Bulldogs play. We play Dolphins later this week, and then the following week we verse the Warriors. So this was a good preview to see where both teams are at before we have a crack at them. And for the Dolphins, very strong first half, a lot of attack. Then the second half, they just kind of faded away. And it's been a bad habit for them for like a good chunk of this year. They'll start games, extraordinarily well, and then like second half, I don't know if it's a fitness thing, mentality thing. They get too cocky, but they just fade away. They get sloppy, they get ill-disciplined, weak defense, and teams make these games close. Dolphins haven't won a game by 13 plus in quite a while because they're always fading away and like either making it a really close win or a close loss. So that's really it for the Dolphins. Warriors, they had a lot of heart. It's so hard for me to like watch them play, considering where they were last year and where they are this year. It's so tragic to see where they've kind of fallen. But injuries and I think maybe a bit of arrogance from last year, they've fallen off. And I think this is it. I think mathematically now the Warriors are done. They're not going to make the 8 this year. SJ's got 3 games left now. He's got Manly this week, Dogs next week, and then Sharks, and then that's it. He retires. Much good luck to him. But yeah, Warriors, they made it a tight game. Chanel Harris-Tavita, man, he could have probably won this game for him. And also, shout out Sean O'Sullivan from the Dolphins. Came on for 17 seconds and then kicked the game-winning field goal. So, yeah, that's it really for that game. And then the last game on the Sunday, wasn't really looking forward to this one. Newcastle and Tigers at McDonald Jones Stadium. Newcastle got the job done 34-18. That first half, Fletcher Sharp and Caleb Ponga were absolutely unreal. Fletcher Sharp got 4 tries in this game, 3 of them in the first half, his first career hat-trick, and then first 4 tries in one game. It was what I kind of expected. I expected Knights to put on a big attacking points on Tigers, but there's not much else I can say about that game. There's nothing exciting to watch about this game. It was very kind of stagnant, a bit of footy fatigue. And yeah, it's 2 teams that have just been unenjoyable to watch this year, to say the least. So with that wrapped up, that is the round 23 review. A lot of solid games this round. Nothing like some of the games are really good, but yeah. So I think now we're going to do a Bulldogs vs Dragons match deep dive. We'll do our stand-up moments from the match, player of the match. Then we'll do all of our awards for round 23. Then we'll move on to our round 24 tips and anytime try scorers. So for the Doggies and Dragons game, alright, I'll go through what it was like before the game, during the game, and after the game. So if you don't want to hear Doggies talk, you can kind of skip like the next, 10-15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. This was just a great game from the Bulldogs. When I got there at the start, New South Wales Cup was going on. The hill was already packed. We're trying to find seats. We end up finding a good spot on the hill to stand. And then we just keep seeing these hordes of people just moving in constantly. Then finally we got kickoff. And from the get-go, it was just intense. You got people going, Bulldogs! Bulldogs! Then you had all the Dragons fans going off. It was a big back and forth. And then when Birdo made that intercept, oh my God, we were yelling, we're screaming. We were going nuts just because we were just happy to see such a huge run. Then he scores, and then the momentum just keeps going. Keep penalty goals, scoring tries. When Toby Sexton put in that absolute beauty of a kick, and then that pass that is like every halfback's dream, to do that kind of pass for Jerry, to just break through the hole and then score. It was fantastic. Fantastic first half. The fans were great. We were going absolutely feral. You know, they scored those 2 tries in a span of like 4 minutes. You know, it was just great stuff. I thought Doggies are gonna blow this game out at the park. Dragons then put a bit of a fight back. And then going into halftime, we're all thinking, okay, we need to be the first team to score in the second half. We need to keep this pressure and momentum going. Little did we in the second half would only consist of 1 try, which was the Kurt Mann try, that was an epic try again. He had arguably, I think this might have been his best game for us this year. You know, huge meters, tackle busts, tackle breaks. He scored that try. He literally ran in, got bounced off by the Dragons player, did like a bit of a spin, and then just all heart, all effort, and put that ball down to score. And obviously we went nuts. I think towards the back end of the game, like 10 minutes to go, we're singing all the chants saying goodbye to the Dragons fans. We're singing the Bulldogs team chants. We're singing all sorts of different chants. We're going delirious. Then full time. Again, we stayed back at least like 20 minutes, just constantly cheering, yelling, screaming, chanting. My voice was gone. I couldn't speak. My throat was sore. There was so much yelling because we're just so happy for us to be winning. And again, this winning mentality is it's such a great feeling when your team just keeps winning like this. When your free team is playing good, you feel great. Everyone around you feels great. It's unreal. It's an unreal feeling. And Doggies fans have been starved of this for the better part of like just under a decade. We've been starved of this, you know, these victories, constant winning, the feeling of being a champion pretty much. You know, we turned Cogra into Belmore. At the end of the game, it felt like I was back at Belmore. Up on a hill, cheering, chanting, screaming. It was unreal stuff. I was so happy that I got my tickets to go to this game. It was a great experience. And yeah, that's pretty much it for what it was like after the game. And obviously walking around, it was a great. Cogra as well was also like a good stadium. I like having, you know, suburban grounds get these kind of huge crowd numbers. I think it's great. I think it's great for the community. And now I want to look at some individual moments from this for the game for the Bulldogs. I obviously covered a couple. You know, Burden's intercept run, that was great. I want to look at Toby Sexton, some of his runs, because again, for me, he was my player of the match. You know, he had some unbelievable stats in this game. He was unreal. You know, he got obviously the 2 mad try assists. He had the 1 line break assist. He had a forced dropout, 172 kick run meters, 54 run meters, and he made 22 tackles. Those are some unreal stats from a young halfback who we didn't even have at the start of the year. I still can't believe that we went the first 11 weeks of the season without having him as our starting halfback. Since we had him in round 12 against the Dragons in round 12, we've only lost 2 games. And those 2 games was the Roosters game where we had a lot of missing players. We had Birdo in the centers. And then the that Cowboys game, we kind of just gave it. We let Cowboys kind of win the game, in my opinion. We didn't play that well. Anyway, Sexton was unreal in this game. Arguably one of his best games for us. He was great. You know, I just read all those stats. And you know, I think that great pass to Sherry was probably like the icing on top for this. You know, run the line, last tackle, he baited everyone to think he's going for a kick, and then just short passes it to Sherry, runs to the line, scores, and that leads us to be leading by 13 plus. And it's just great stuff. It's so great. And again, I know I was literally just saying it's a bit wild that we didn't have him for 11 weeks as our starting halfback, but if you think about it, him going to reserve grade and working on his game and improving ultimately has proven to be, you know, a great move. Because in my opinion, I reckon if he didn't spend that time in reserve grade, leveling up his game, practicing, doing what he normally does, he wouldn't be as good as he is now. I think it was just great for his development, and it's paying off for us. We're playing so well now with him on the side. So yeah, he was a standout. Kurt Mann was a standout. Bronson Jerry, he's been so good for us lately. I think in the last 5, he scored like 5 tries in the last 5 games for us. He's been an unreal try scorer, unreal player. And yeah, that's pretty much it for my deep dive. Obviously, I had my standout moments of the match, and before the match and after the match, my players of the match. Player of the match obviously goes to Sexton. He was unreal. Now I want to go to my round 23 awards. So for my player of the round, I actually want to give it to Katoni Staggs. He was unreal. He scored those 2 really good tries against the Cowboys. It was pretty much him and Val Holmes versing each other, and Katoni Staggs obviously got the win over him. And I think one of the tries he scored was very similar to one of Carl Webb's tries. And obviously, this game between Cowboys and Broncos was like for Carl Webb Foundation. And, it's all about in his memory, God rest his soul. And to score a try so similar to him, I think that was such a really nice touch. And the way he's been probably arguably the best player for the Broncos this year. So yeah, Katoni Staggs, my player of the round. Now for team of the round, I'm going to give it to the Panthers. They were actually, you know what? No, sorry. I'm going to take that back. Team of the round, I'm going to give it to the Sharks. To hold a team, to scoreless, to defend like that, to attack like that, you got to deserve to be team of the round. Game of the round, I'll give to Panthers and Eels. That was a fantastic game. A lot of great moments. Worst team of the round, I'm going to give it to... if I'm going to give it to the Sharks, I'm going to give it to the Titans. From where they were last week to now, it was very disappointing. Now, worst game of the round, I'm actually going to give it to the Souths and Storm game. That was, I don't know, being there live, it was boring. It felt like a bit of a snooze fest. I was a bit out of the game, honestly. I wasn't really invested in it. So, yeah, that's my awards for round 23. Now we're going to do our round 24 tips, team lists, and anytime try scorers. Okay, so for the first game on the Thursday night, it's first v second, the Panthers and the Melbourne Storm at Penrith. This is probably, game of the round is going to be the first game of the round, which is great. I think Panthers, on the back of that performance and the way they're on this roll now, I reckon Panthers get the job done. Actually, no, sorry. We'll do our team list before we do tips. So for the Panthers, Edwards and James Fisher-Harris are on the extended bench. They will most likely be playing. Obviously, Liam Martin got suspended for that sin bin against Parramatta. But again, there's not much else to it. Panthers pretty much all the same, 1-17. For the Melbourne Storm, Eli Katoa is back in the side after a 1-week stint. I think it was just a good rest for this game. And what is going to be an absolute blockbuster match. I'm going to take Panthers here 1-12. And for an anytime try scorer, I'm going to go with Brian To'o. Now we move on to the Friday game at 6 o'clock. We've got the Manly Sea Eagles versus the Warriors at 4 Pines Park. For the Manly Sea Eagles, essentially 1-17 all the same. No real changes here. For the Warriors, SJ is back in the side. Marcelo Montoya is back in the side. Otherwise than that, no real changes here. I'm going to go Manly, and I'm going to go actually 13+. I reckon Manly are going to get the job done. They're going to win, and they're going to win well. And for an anytime try scorer, I'm going to give it to Ruben Garrick. Now, I might change it depending on how I'm feeling. I'm still a bit iffy on that. I don't know if I'm going to go Manly 1-12 or 13+. But for now on the pod, I'm going to say 13+. On my Instagram post, I might say 1-12. We'll see what happens. But anytime try scorer, I'm going to go Ruben Garrick. We move on to the Friday night 8 o'clock game, the Roosters versus the Eels. This is at Allianz Stadium. For the Roosters, they obviously had the bye last week, so everyone is fresh and fit to play. No real changes to the side. For the Eels, again, no real changes here. Essentially, 1-17 is all the same for both teams. I'm going to go Roosters 13+, and I'm actually going to go Angus Crichton to score a try. I reckon we give some of these second rowers a bit of love to score a try. Now we move on to Super Saturday, the first game at 3 o'clock at Solar Oval, Bundaberg. The Bulldogs are the home team against the Dolphins. For the Doggies, 1-17 is essentially the same. The only change is Lipoiopoulos is, I believe, has been dropped, and instead Jamin Salmon comes back into the side. He is back from an extended injury, and I believe he's also served his 1-week suspension after having I think it was a broken jaw. So happy to have Salmon back. He was, up until his injury, he was outstanding for us. He was a great vocal voice around the team, so it'd be great to have him on the bench as a bit of a super sub, if you want to look at it that way. For the Dolphins, Mark Nichols ruled out after that head knock he got last week. Otherwise than that, no changes. No surprise here. I'm going to go Bulldogs 1-12. I think Dolphins will make this a bit of a tight one. And I'm going to go Toby Sexton here to score a try. I reckon in the form he is in, I'm going to give Toby Sexton a halfback a bit of love here and let him score a try. Get him to score a try in this game. So that's Bulldogs 1-12. Sexton, anytime try scorer. Then at 5:30, we've got the Cowboys versus the Raiders up at Townsville. For the Cowboys, no changes. For the Raiders, Ethan Strange moved into the centers. Adam Cook and Jamal Fogarty in the halves. I'm going to go Cowboys here 1-12. Both teams had embarrassing losses last week. They both need to bounce back. And Cowboys have been the better team. So I reckon Cowboys will, at home, they're going to want to get that bounce back. And I'm going to go Scotty Drinkwater score. I think he's going to... he's been great for him this year, and I reckon he'll score a try. Moving on to the late game on the Saturday night, 7:35 p.m. Tigers and Souths at, I believe it's in Campbelltown. For the Tigers, no real changes to the side. For the Bunnies, no changes either. I'm going to go, you know what, I'm going to go for a wild one here. I'm going to go Tigers 1-12. Both teams are due for a win. More the Tigers. So I'm going to go Tigers to win this 1-12. And I'm going to go Lachlan Galvin to score a try here. Moving on to the Sunday game at 2 o'clock. The Dragons and the Titans. This is at Wynn Stadium, so down the Gong. For the Dragons, obviously, I believe the name is Fatape. That might be his name. He's been ruled out. Same as Moses Sully. Wishing them both a speedy recovery. In their replacement, the Fagai brothers, can't really pronounce their names. The two brothers will be in the centers. For the Titans, AJ Brimson moved onto the bench. Otherwise than that, everything's all the same here. I'm going to go Dragons 1-12. If we're following this win-loss pattern, this week they're due for a win. And I'm going to go Zachy Lomax to score here, honestly. I reckon over on the wing, he'll jump over for a try. Moving on to the last game. This is that Sunday, 4:05 p.m. The Sharks versus the Newcastle Knights. This is at Shark Park. For the Sharkies, the only real teamless news is Braden Trindle and Ronaldo Mulatalo have been put on the extended bench, so keep an eye out for that. For the Newcastle, 1-17, all the same. I'm going to go Sharks 13 plus here. I reckon in the form they're in, they'll win this, and they'll win this well. I'm actually going to go Kyler Iro to score a try here. I reckon in the form he's in lately, he'll go over for a try. So that is my teamless tips and anytime try scorers for round 24. Now we're just going to do a very quick Supercoach discussion, do my trades for the week. Then we'll get into some news. So for my Supercoach this week, Reece Robson will remain at hooker. Same as Kay Donahue on my bench. For my front rowers, AFB and Josh Curran will be the same. Mariota and Royce Hunt on the bench. For my second rowers, I have decided to trade out David Fafita. I reckon with the Titans and the form they're in, they're kind of starting to slip off. I reckon I'd rather get a different second rower. And I'm bringing in my opinion, the best second rower in the comp, Angus Crichton. I'm going to bring him in. I'm going to have TPJ and Satilia Tupanua as my second rowers. Ruben Porter, Orion Keeley, and Katoni Katoga on my second rowers on the bench. 4 halfbacks, Cleary and Jerome Hughes. My 5'8", Matt Burden and Luke Keary. For wingers and centers, Val Holmes, Brian To'o, and Kiraz. I've decided to trade out Ittle this week. I think he's peaked in price. And I'm going to bring in Zach Lomax, who I reckon he's going to go on a bit of a run this back end of the season. He might score decently well. So I bring in Zach Lomax. Then I've got Hammer, Stephen Crichton, and Jay Tunga on my bench. For fullbacks, we've got James Tedesco and Tom Travojevic. And since Roosters are matching up against the Eels this week, I'm actually captaining Teddy. I reckon he might go sub-nuclear and just score a hell of a lot of points. So that is it. And my trades is obviously I'm trading out Ittle and Dave Fafita, and I'm bringing in Angus Crichton. You know, both teams have no buys left for the season. They're both great attackers. They're both Origin players. I reckon they'll both score well for their teams. So that's why I'm bringing them in. I currently have 3 trades left. I'm really hoping no one in my team gets badly injured. I don't want Cleary going out for injury. I don't want AFB, or I don't want what's another one? Teddy. So I'm hoping I don't have to use that many trades. I've got 3 left, 3 weeks to go. Hope everything works out well. So that's my Supercoach discussion and trades for the week. Now we're getting into some news. I'll keep this first one quite brief because it's a bit of a. It's quite old news at this point. We've got the Flano biting incident. Unfortunately, for what was a great game between the Dogs and the Dragons, I intentionally left this out on purpose to save it for this segment because I didn't want this discussion to overshadow. I think that's how you phrase it. To overshadow, this great game between Dogs and Dragons. I didn't want this because all the other news articles, commentators, everyone's made this incident the focal point instead of the great game and atmosphere and fans. They made this little biting incident the main headline. Obviously, I think it was in the 62nd minute. Crichton tackles Flanagan. It gets his head all up in his face. His nose ends up between his teeth, and Kyle Flanagan bites down, pulls at his nose, and pretty much cuts him. He's all bleeding. He's been sent straight to the judiciary and has been given a 4-match ban. He will pretty much not play for the rest of the season unless Dragons make finals. This will be Kyle Flanagan's last game for the season. Now, to everyone who's saying that it's Crichton's fault and that he shouldn't have his head up in his face, that is a common thing in games. Literally in this game alone between the two teams. Just in this game, there was 4 to 5 incidences where players had their heads up in the other opposition team's face. You didn't see them get their nose bitten. And look at every game this season. It happens 10 times a game. I can't believe people are trying to defend Kyle Flanagan. He bit down and he didn't let go. He kept his jaw clenched around the nose, so much so he pulled at Crichton's nose and literally caused a tear and had a whole bunch of blood, bite marks. You can't seriously be sitting here defending Kyle Flanagan. So I think 4-match ban is quite sufficient. I think any more would have been a bit excessive. I think 4 matches is enough, considering this will probably be. I don't think Dragons are going to make the 8 this year. I reckon they'll just miss it. So, yeah, Kyle Flanagan, gone for 4 weeks. Don't bite people. Simple as that. Now, this next incident, bit of a tragic one, but at the same time, it's you've got to expect it at this point. Latrell Mitchell has been reported to the NRL Integrity Unit after a photo has been spread around the internet and around pretty much the public. A photo of him at I think it was a hotel or a motel room in Dubbo with a blonde woman and a white powder substance on a table where he's leaning over it. I'm just going to say on here, it appears to be cocaine. Obviously, there has been no evidence that it is cocaine or that he's guilty, all that stuff. Again, the Integrity Unit is investigating it. It's up to them to make all those decisions. But from what I can assess in this photo, he's clearly leaning over a table, snorting cocaine. And the fact that he was there in Dubbo to be doing a coaching clinic, talking to kids, trying to inspire them to be great players, and then he does this, it's so disappointing. This guy cops enough flack as it is already for being Latrell Mitchell. This guy literally just exists and cops shit from journos and other people. And again, I'm not the biggest Latrell Mitchell fan. I think he's a bit of a grub. I'm not his biggest fan. However, I still respect that he is on his good day a really good player. You know, he makes a difference sometimes for Souths. And if he just got his shit together, he'd be arguably the best fullback in the comp if he just got his shit together. And then you see stuff like this, and it just disappoints you. But, you know, I can't really comment too much on this. He hasn't been found guilty yet. You know, I always believe in innocent or proven guilty, so no more comments on that from me. You know, and if he is guilty, you know, just get your shit together, man. What are you doing? You're meant to be an inspiration to kids. You're a footy player. Kids look up to you. Set the example. Doing cocaine, like, Abashum, man, like, it's just a shame. Alright, I think that's it. I'm not going to get too much deeper into that. We're going to cover some signing news, because this week there has been a lot of signings. I'm going to cover the 4 major signings from this week, and in order of, like, most shocking to least shocking. First one, the worst kept secret in the NRL at the moment. Ewan Aiken going to the Rabbitohs. He's pretty much following Wayne Bennett. This always happens. Whenever Wayne Bennett goes to a new club, at least one player will follow him, because that's the Wayne Bennett effect. And, you know, I thought this was public knowledge. That's why when I saw the post going around, I was thinking, wait, wasn't this confirmed like months ago? Anyway, good luck to him. He's going to Souths. The next signing I want to talk about, Valentine Holmes agreeing to go to the Dragons. Yeah, that's a big one for me. Actually, no, I'll cover that one next. Blaze Talangi, as it's been confirmed this week, he'll be joining the Penrith Panthers next year. Again, this has been well documented, well reported. I wasn't too surprised. We're just waiting for that confirmation post. Good luck to him. He might play 5A, winger, center. We don't know. It'll be up to the coaching team, what they assess of him during the preseason, and they'll decide where he goes in the team. So good luck to him. He's a gun player, and I reckon he'll kill it over at Penrith. Now we'll cover the Valentine Holmes going to the Dragons. I really thought for all money he was going to go to the Roosters. You know, they're losing both their centers going into next year. They've got a shit ton of money up their sleeve. Uncle Nick with their brown paper bags. I assumed he was going to go, Roosters would snatch him up. They already got Chad Townsend. I thought he would be going to the Roosters as well. Chad and Val. But Valentine Holmes, obviously, he's got a connection with Shane Flanagan. And he's agreed to a 3-year deal going into next year. And this is kind of proving that the Dragons this year have become like the reject team. Literally, everyone they're picking up are rejects. You know, Valentine Holmes got rejected from his club. We didn't want Kyle Flanagan and RFM anymore. Like, you look at some of their players, they came from teams that didn't want those players. And Dragons were just like, you know what, we're gonna sign him. Damien Cook as well. So he's buying a bunch of players who other clubs don't want, and I reckon next year they might do a bit better than most people think, but I'll save that for another video. The final signing news, this one was a bit devastating for obvious reasons. Jarrell Skelton has been confirmed and is signed with the West Tigers. Now, okay, I kind of had a feeling eventually he was going to get picked up by another team. If we're not re-signing him, I knew something was going to get him. He is an absolute gun winger, absolute beast, and he wants to go to first grade. He wants to play consistent minutes in first grade. He doesn't want to be the third or fourth option. Because at the Dogs, we've got Kiraz, we've got Fox, we've got Wilson, we've got wingers to back up wingers. And it's a real shame. But again, he wants to progress in his career. He wants more minutes. He wants to be a first pick option. And I reckon with Tigers next year getting Taruva and Jerome Luai as well. Tigers again will be another team that might impress a lot of people next year. So good luck to Skelton. I'm wishing him all the very best. Absolute gun player. And yeah, that's it for signing news. Now the NRL have, it's been going around that they will be doing a 100-meter sprint for Grand Final Day in all the heat of the Olympic news. With all the Olympics going on this year, that's been the big coverage for them. You know, they want to do a 100-meter sprint. I think they did it about over a decade ago now. And, you know, people loved it. Look, if they actually go through with it this year, I'd be very interested. Because I like to see players like Saab, Hammer, Kohler, Fox, even Crichton. All these really fast players. Carm Pereira, that'd be a really good one to see. Even Talangi, Kyle Weeks. But there does come the risk of like players getting injured and coaches might not want to do it. The risk injuries of their players, or even depending on who's in the grand final, they might not want to do it. So I'm a 50-50 on the 100-meter sprint. I'm not 100% too sure if that's going to go through or not, but we'll see what happens. Now, the last news segment for the day, and the one I really want to talk about, the NRL have decided to announce the class of 2024 NRL Hall of Fame inductees. I'm going to go through the list of all the NRL players that have been inducted into this list. You've got Lionel Morgan, Les Boyd, Ben Ilias, Steve Renouf, Cameron Smith, Jonathan Thurston, Billy Slater, Benji Marshall, Cooper Cronk, Greg Inglis, and Sam Burgess. And you look at that list, and so many of these players, they're premiership winners. They're some of the greatest players of their era. You know, they inducted the big three: Cameron Smith, Slater, Cronk, Greg Inglis, Benji Marshall, Sam Burgess. I think the big one is JT getting inducted. That's huge. All these are huge. You know, huge congratulations to all these players. These are all outstanding players. And I'd love to see moving forward who else is going to get inducted into the Hall of Fame. Because, you know, it's such a prestigious thing to get inducted into the Hall of Fame. So, yeah, huge congratulations to all these players. They're all extraordinary players. You know, the big three, JT, Inglis, Sam Burgess, you know, playing an entire grand final with a fractured cheekbone. Benji Marshall winning the Tigers their first ever comp and their only comp at the moment. And all the older players like Ben Ilias, Les Boyd, Steve Renouf, Lionel Morgan. Huge congratulations to all these guys. And yeah, I just really wanted to cover that and all the players. And you know, I think it's great that we're seeing these kind of players get inducted to the Hall of Fame. Because, you know, it's an extensive list. And I can't wait to see who else gets inducted moving forward. There's not really much Bulldogs news this week. No new injuries. The only thing really is that I believe Max King is like 1 to 2 weeks away from returning, so that's be huge. I've had the pleasure of meeting him. Great guy. I can't wait to see him back in the squad. And I believe that's everything. I've covered it. Round 23 review, all the games, my awards, my team lists for round 24, tips, anytime try scorers, super coach. Covered the Flano incident, Trell incident, the signing news going around for all the different teams, the Hall of Fame inductees, the 100-meter sprint. And yeah, I believe that might be it for this episode. Okay, everybody. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Wild Doggies Fan podcast. If you're new here, please like the video, subscribe, and comment down below, and stay tuned for all future videos. Also, please follow me on Instagram at the Wild Doggies Fan. I post a lot of content on there. And happy to chat with all the listeners. And yeah, this was a great episode. Not as long as last week, but still a great episode and a great chat. I look forward to seeing you all in the next episode. And yeah, that's about it. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Wild Doggies Fan podcast.